Amanda. I just received a phone call from you.
Hey, Amanda. Yeah, I just wanted to touch base with you if I could on the notices you've been calling in reference to some chemtrails, I guess you call them.
Right.
Yeah, our agency is an industrial regulator. We regulate like Nabisco and Kraft Foods and stuff like that. We don't regulate emissions from aircraft or actually any vessels or vehicles for that matter. I see you called our agency 3 times with 3 different issues about these chemtrails, and I just wanted to make sure I had the right issue that you were concerned with.
You had stated that the FAA, NASA, and NOAA would be the right people for me to contact. I've actually contacted all of them. Nothing has happened. I've been sent around like back and forth to the EPA and the FAA for years now. The reason why I contacted you guys was because I wanted to get some type of a sample, either from like the soil or something like that. EPA had contacted the health department here to do that. Then in the end, they backed out because they said they didn't want to use state money. I am extremely overwrought with the condition of the atmosphere here and also with the treatment that I've received from all of the federal agencies and government agencies. No one has investigated one of my claims of airplane pollution. I know that you use the term chemtrails because it's the slang vernacular, or whatever you want to call it, for airplane pollution, but it's an air pollution problem that I want to be addressed. And you're the Department of Environmental Quality. Do you test the air?
We monitor the air, but our air monitor people do that, but they monitor it down, within the livable range where, people are dwelling and stuff like that.
This stuff floats down from the air to where we're living. Do you guys test for heavy metals or biological material?
I couldn't tell you the exact things that are tested for in each region because, like the Tidewater area, they test differently than what's tested up in Northern Virginia or Piedmont or out west or something like that. But regardless, the emissions from aircraft is not something that we test for. Even if we picked up something, we wouldn't have the statutory authority to go to the Department of Defense and say you're not allowed to fly over Tidewater because of X or because of Y. And I'm not trying to make small of what your concerns are. I'm just telling you we don't have the statutory authority to tell the federal government what they can or can't do. If our samples, and that's how our air monitoring comes back, we have low quality, high quality, we put out what the air quality samples tell us for this region, and obviously we have to post that, I don't know if it's daily, weekly, or monthly, however it's posted out, but specifically identifying some nuances to the air quality and I don't mean chemtrails as in a slang or belittling. There's condensation trails, we call those contrails, and that's where the atmosphere temperature is so cold. But I believe a lot of the concerns that you have is the other emissions that are coming out of the jets, whether it's carbon dioxide, unburnt fuel, could go on and on. Those are things that we don't have the authority to measure those or to regulate those.
What made you say the Department of Defense? Because I didn't even mention them.
Because in this area, that's the number one customer for aircraft traffic is the Department of Defense, the Navy.
Wow. Okay, I didn't know that. So would you suggest
Hold on now. You're in Tidewater, and you had no idea that the jets were flying over your head.
We're Department of Defense? No, I didn't. I didn't know who the jets. I didn't know if they were commercial planes, if it was just military training.
No, you got NASA Langley. That's there. That's Air Force, but it's still under DOD. Navy, DOD. That's the number one. That's why a lot of civilian aircraft don't like to fly into Tidewater because the military jets are so fast around here. It's like riding a bicycle in the HOV lane. It's such a contrast in the two of them. But it's going to be a steep road to hoe in this area with just all the jet traffic. But have you talked to the Navy, at all to try to get?
Yes, I have.
Okay. And what was their response?
They told me that they were going to call me back. No one will investigate this for me, and I am extremely concerned. It's a daily attack of airplane pollution here in Hampton Roads.
Right. I don't think you necessarily want people to do the investigation for you. What you need to do is just do FOIA requests for air emissions from the jets.
Okay.
So if you go to Oceana your environmental lead contact over there, just send them an email and say, this is a FOIA request. Don't tell them everything under the sun because they're not going to process it. You got to give them something manageable. So any air emission studies that they've done for the jets and the byproduct of the jets traversing over, and don't say Virginia, just say the eastern region of Virginia, within a reasonable range of Oceania, and see what they come back with. And let's say he comes back with, when we had flight ops, we noticed, a slight increase in, X and Y in the atmosphere, but we found them to all be within the regulatory range that the FAA or, whoever gives them their authority. Or he'll come back and say, we just don't do those types of studies.
Right.
But at least that's going to give you a green light or a red light. And if it gives you a green light, then you take that information and you look at it. And if you have any traction there, then you take that information and then you go to the EPA.
I use the Freedom of Information Act information that I researched to then file a complaint with the EPA? Is that how it works?
No, what we're doing is, you're telling somebody to cook your meal. What you want to do is cook the meal, and then based upon the meal, then you either have the grounds to go to the next level, which is, i.e., you ask the Navy for any kind of air monitoring results. They gave you those results, and if, let's say, those results kick out 3 things that you think are abnormal, then you take that and you go to the EPA and say, well, who would regulate this heavy metal in the atmosphere or this higher carbon monoxide in and around Oceania? Who would regulate that? And then they'll come back and say, based upon your question for these specifics, here's where you need to go. Right now, you're chasing a windmill, and nobody knows who owns the windmill, much less who regulates that windmill. You're going to be looking at carbon monoxide or metals or unburnt fuels,
biological material, any of that.
Anything that you think might be a byproduct of the planes going over. There's a plethora of things you could do, but I would go to Oceana and ask them. They're our biggest customer here. You could go to NOB, Norfolk, and then you could go to Langley and ask them all 3 for any, and find out who the environmental. And so if you have an environmental guy at Oceana, ask him who his counterpart is at Norfolk, and ask him if by chance does he know who the environmental lead is at Langley. And that would give you 3 different sample results over a wider range. And you got Oceana, Norfolk, and Newport News, probably about 30 miles apiece, apart from each other. So it would give you a true spectrum across, a larger area. And then out of the 3, maybe 1 or 2 will send you a report back, and based upon that information, you could formulate your next step of action, if any.